Well, my Tar Heels lost, unfortunately, but I'm not upset about it. Um, I'm still wearing my shirt, but here's what I want to say about recruiting basketball players, coaches, and I know it's past 3 in the morning, it's almost 4, but my parents are dealing with a situation with my grandfather who unfortunately has cancer, but the good news is he is doing okay and it's not that big of cancer. So even though it's minor, please keep him in your thoughts and prayers as he is struggling, not really struggling, but he is not fighting. It's a little cancer going through this. He has to go to the hospital. Luckily, though, he will survive 99.9% or 100% positive, or hopefully it is that, but I think it will be. We all do. But keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Anyway, what I was going to say was Alabama did a good job of defending my Tar Heels. But here's the takeaway. RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau RJ didn't play well because of Alabama, and Elliot Cadeau didn't play much. But here's what I want to say here. The reason that Alabama beat Carolina is because they outplayed us. But here's the thing. This is why it's so important to recruit and to, in this day and age, go in the portal and methodically and carefully recruit the right basketball players or football players for that matter if you're alongside the coach. What I mean by that is whether it's on the court or the field, you just have to, as a coach or as the coaching staff's assistant, has to methodically, carefully recruit the players. And Alabama had guards. Here's an example of what it is, what I'm talking about here. What you have to do in order to successfully get players that can win games for you. North Carolina does not have guards that can constantly make threes, enough of them. If we had the same guards that on Alabama's team, Nate Oates would be crying tonight. We would have won the game, probably by close, or even probably by 15, we would have won. But here's what it's like, okay? Let's say an employee is hired, or a bunch of employees are hired by a manager either at a store or a restaurant, right? And, the manager hires bad employees, and he or she at the store or restaurant is not methodically careful enough to hire the person at the checkout or the person who, shines your shoes or whatever, or the chef at the restaurant or the waiter or waitress or the chefs who cook the food. If the manager of the store or the restaurant do not hire, the right management or the right staff members who are supposed to satisfy and please the customers, people like you and I, and they don't do a good job, eventually what will happen, right, is we would complain about their food or how bad the company is, not returning your phone calls, and eventually, and how bad the food would be. Eventually, what would happen, is they get fired. They'd get complaints, the managers. First of all, number one, the managers would get complaints from people like us all the time. And secondly, what would also happen then is not only would they get complaints from us, but also what would happen is they would get complaints. And then third, they would look bad. And fourth, they would fire most of their employees. And fifth, last but not least, the store or the restaurant would go out of business. It would close down. They would shut their doors. So my point is, you have to, as a coach's assistant, go out and scout the best players in the country, and you have to say, come play for me. Or if you transfer, if you're a kid, a student athlete, you have to methodically, first, number one, know your identity and how good you are. Recognize that you're talented and you can bring championship level talent to that team. Second of all, you should study what teams had the losing record or lost in the Sweet 16, like North Carolina did this year. If I'm somebody from, say, Marquette or Alabama even, who beat me, I would check the school and I would look, if I played them, I would remember beating them and say, I should transfer to that school that I beat, because I knew that I was good on my team. Now I could come play for this team who I beat, and we could end up playing my former team if I transfer to this school with NIL money, and I could play this team and beat the team I formerly played again. You need to study who you want to play for, number two. Number three is you're going to have to be willing to make your final decision, narrow it down, and make the choice and say, I'm going to play for that team, and that's what has to happen. But it all comes down to the assistant coach recruiting or calling him on the phone, or the student athlete calling the assistant coach on the phone, or the coach for that matter, saying, I want to come play for you. I want to show you that we can win more than and go further than what your team did to my former team last year. And then honestly, a lot of basketball and football players don't do this. It is March Madness. They're trying to focus in on the game. I was on a basketball team in New York at a school called Maplebrook. It's sort of famous, but not really, but kind of famous. But when I was on that team, what I did was I looked up at the scoreboard and I saw how much we were up by and we were down by. And if we were down to a good team, great team, I would make something happen, and I did, and we won. That's what I think, in my opinion, needs to happen. But at the end of the day, really, It's all about recruits. If you don't hire or don't look methodically at the right recruits, eventually in the postseason, whether it's your conference football or the Sweet 16 in this case, or whatever, if you don't methodically, carefully recruit or study as a student athlete who you last played and want to play for them and go in the portal, you're going to get beat. Okay? That's what it is. You are going to get beat, and you have to methodically, as an assistant coach, and it's not Hubert Davis in this case. It might be Sean May or Creighton Lebo. I don't know. But in this case, whoever it is that goes alongside the coach, Hubert Davis, has to methodically, carefully hire, if you will, kind of like hiring, my employee example, have to recruit the great players who are surely to win and not lose in the Sweet 16, who can dominate all over the floor or all over the football field in the fall to make it a college football playoff spot or possibility for that matter. You have to recruit the dominants and study them and be real about it and be real careful about it. That's what has to happen. It's same is true here at home with Wake Forest. If Steve Forbes or Randolph Childress, I don't know if it's him anymore, but whoever did the same thing, we would have been in March Madness this year, not the NIT. But it all starts with recruiting. You have to recruit the great players if you want to truly be a winner. It's like hiring the right employees as a manager, as I explained. All right. Well, that's my video. So it all starts with recruiting, folks, and having that chemistry you know well that player will have in him. Bye-bye. Happy March Madness still. Go State. Go Wolfpack.